All right, today, actually yesterday, we got some bombshell news because Xbox, Microsoft really, accidentally leaked roughly 100 documents through a court submission process, which is now probably the largest gaming-specific data leak of all time. If not, it's pretty darn close, so let's get into it. For starters, there were, actually probably still are, quite a few people who are adamantly claiming that the leak was intentional. Somehow, people are deluding themselves into believing that this was a PR stunt from Microsoft to announce their new console. But no, that's ridiculous, because this leak is so far-reaching, it would be a nightmare for any company, regardless of what positive developments could ever result from part of it. Here's how it happened, at least how it seems to have happened based on existing evidence and a judge's order. Microsoft and Sony have been locked in a battle over the acquisition of Activision Blizzard. Microsoft wants it, Sony wants to stop it. Pretty straightforward. Well, court battles like this require an unbelievable amount of documents, evidence, procedures, and disclosures. I'm actually running into some of that in my own life right now and understanding what the process looks like, leading to a very complex framework by which the companies interact with each other and with the court. During that process, funnily enough, Sony had previously accidentally leaked their own development timeline and budget for two major titles, The Last of Us 2 and Horizon Forbidden West, because, and I do sort of have to laugh here, because someone redacted a document with Sharpie and then scanned it. That doesn't hold up very well when you import the document to Photoshop. Clearly someone wasn't aware of that. Obviously the leak is pretty small given the projects it applies to, but still, it demonstrates that large companies are composed of people, and if they're actively embroiled in a court case going through the process of redacting sensitive information, sometimes they make mistakes. Still, as funny as that might be, it's nothing compared to Xbox and Microsoft. For them, the leaks are an undeniable monstrosity, and the way it happened is also far worse. Near as we can tell, credit to Stephen Totillo over on Twitter for this part, a document was uploaded just like any other, appearing normal when viewed in a browser, but not so fast, because when that file was opened in Adobe Reader, the attachments were visible, and the attachments contained a lot of files. That breach led to the discovery of all of this, and it's a lot. We're talking full timeline of Xbox plans till 2030. Discussions about a possible hostile takeover of Nintendo with other names for acquisition like Warner Brothers and Valve. An Xbox handheld, next-generation consoles and dates, next-generation controllers, a whole bunch of info about games like Oblivion and Fallout 3 Remastered or Red Dead Redemption 2 for next-gen systems, an Xbox cloud console, Indiana Jones, Dishonored 3, the next Doom title, Ghostwire Tokyo 2, stats on Gamepass, and their targets, plus more that I'm not even going to get into right now, because there's an active feeding frenzy on what the leaks contain currently in gaming media, and I'm more interested in giving the overview today. Moving on. This is quite probably the largest and most damaging leak from any company in video game history, and yes, it came from Microsoft. See, a lot of Xbox fans were oh so high on their copium. I'm not being an asshole, I'm just kidding, okay, I love you guys, but some fans were theorizing that this might have been intentional. It wasn't. According to Judge Jacqueline Scott Corley in a signed order, quote, Microsoft provided the link on September 14th and the court uploaded the exhibits to internet page established for this case, end quote. It was Microsoft. So what does it mean? Well, for starters, though I won't focus on the smaller items, there are two things that I find most interesting in all of the coverage so far. First being Microsoft's attitude towards Nintendo, second being their attitude towards Game Pass, funnily enough. For Nintendo, the relevant email causing a stir all across social media right now is this one from Xbox CEO of Gaming Phil Spencer. Quote, Takeshi, I totally agree that Nintendo is the prime asset for us in gaming, and today gaming is our most likely path to consumer relevance. I've had numerous conversations with the LT of Nintendo about tighter collaboration and feel like if any US company would have a chance with Nintendo, we are probably in the best position. The unfortunate or fortunate for Nintendo situation is that Nintendo is sitting on a pile of cash. They have a board of directors that until recently has not pushed for further increases in market growth or stock appreciation. I say until recently, as our former Microsoft Board of Directors member Value Act has been heavily acquiring shares of Nintendo, and I've kept in touch with Mason Morfitt as he's been acquiring. It's likely he will be pushing for more from Nintendo stock, which could create opportunities for us. Without that catalyst, I don't see an angle to a near-term mutually agreeable merger of Nintendo and Microsoft, and I don't think a hostile action would be a good move, so we are playing the long game. But our board of directors has seen the full write-up on Nintendo and Valve, and they are fully supportive on either if opportunity arises, as am I, end quote. For reference, there's a link in the middle that he included in his email, which goes here. An exclusive from Reuters, Value Act eyes Nintendo with stake of over 1.1 billion. That has a lot of people champing at the bit for an argument online. Some people are calling it evil, monopolistic, scummy, and others are excited that Microsoft is apparently seriously considering a takeover of Valve, Nintendo, Warner Brothers, or even ZeniMax. Phil Spencer mentions those two later on in the same email. My thoughts? Microsoft doesn't really have a legitimate shot at Nintendo due to the relative success of Nintendo Switch and first-party games for that platform. But then again, a lot of this comes to us without context, and we really just have a collection of emails. Microsoft is clearly making an active push to acquire stock in Nintendo by proxy or straight up, wherever that might lead. So the door is certainly open. Maybe it's a legitimate possibility, maybe not, but that was one of the most interesting individual items, at least in my opinion. The second thing that people have widely discussed, actually not nearly as much as the Nintendo stuff, but the second thing I believe they should be widely discussing are the Gamepass figures. Turns out the leaked files contained this, which outlines the current state of Microsoft Game Pass. And in my view, till right now, Game Pass was a massive growing success, but reality itself may not be so kind. See, the documents contain projections forward-looking till 2030, and Phil Spencer has openly stated, quote, "If we do not make more progress than this off console, we would exit the gaming business," end quote. That's a pretty big deal. And maybe it's posturing because of their lawsuit regarding Activision Blizzard. Oh, poor little me, Microsoft, even though they're not little by any stretch of the word. But this type of macro business environment is something we as the customers really very rarely get to see. Sure, we don't actually know what's going to happen 6 years from now in 2030, but Microsoft is making very big plays using a lot of resources. Want some proof? Okay. This one comes from Kotaku. Like I said, basically every single gaming publication is feeding on the links right now like a veritable cornucopia out in a field in the Hunger Games. According to additional material found in the breach, these are Microsoft's own internal estimates when it comes to the relative cost of acquiring games for Game Pass. Lego Star Wars, $35 million. Dying Light 2, $50 million. Red Dead Redemption 2, $5 million per month. Dragon Ball, The Breakers, $20 million. A couple more $5 million price tags, 14, etc., etc. Gotham Knights, $50 million. Assassin's Creed Mirage, $100 million. Suicide Squad, $250 million. Star Wars Jedi Survivor, $300 million. Mortal Kombat 1, $250 million. Grand Theft Auto 5, $12 to $15 million per month. And a couple more fives. I probably don't need to emphasize this, but that is not a small amount of money to acquire Game Pass titles. And again, this isn't a complete picture of Microsoft's inner workings, far from it, but it's more than we've ever seen before on the customer side. And my personal opinion is that spending on that scale probably won't be an indefinite venture, making me much more receptive to the idea that Microsoft is genuinely examining their own position in the industry. See, Xbox is a big deal to all of us. But to Microsoft, a $2.4 trillion company whose main revenue stream is from server products and cloud services, when their second highest income stream is Office products and third is Windows, yeah, they don't care about gaming the way we do. Gaming, for them, is down way at the bottom with LinkedIn and Bing advertising. The scope of this leak is enormous, and just in case people still don't fully understand why, try this on for size. Companies like Microsoft, they're definitely not alone. Sony, Google, and others use a similar technique to be sure, but focusing on Microsoft here for this video. Microsoft holds a patent for something called Watermark to Identify Leak Source, which is basically a system where extremely subtle watermarks are built into proprietary information, so you can't even actually grab screenshots. They can trace those, or disperse it, or whatever, without leading directly back to at least one individual at the company. It's pretty complicated, but effectively there is a massive amount of scrutiny when it comes to sensitive information, meaning that we really just don't see leaks on this scale from people working at the company actively. We don't see it because Microsoft has a patented system to trace it, and whoever does the leaking obviously gets fucked. However, because of the way this particular leak occurred, things kind of spun out of control rather fast. Microsoft can't shut this down, and yeah, somebody's probably getting fired, but the result is that we, the customer, gets to see how the sausage is made, if you will, and peruse a bunch of sensitive files that Microsoft accidentally let out into the wild. It's cool for us, shitty for them, obviously, but yeah, I found it interesting that they even have a patented system in place for hidden watermarks to shut down even the slightest possibility of a leak occurring. And then all their stuff gets dropped because of a bad PDF file with improper link permissions in a court case. Actually, it's not the first time that something so small has had such a large impact on Microsoft. Coincidentally, beginning in June of 2023 and still being reported as of yesterday, a Microsoft employee shared a URL to Azure in a GitHub repository while working on an open source AI project. And that one simple mistake resulted in the breach of 38 terabytes of data, including employee personal computer backups, Microsoft Service login credentials, and 30,000 internal messages. That right there just speaks to how non-secure digital information actually is, but I mean, I'm kind of getting derailed, so yeah. Microsoft is having a rough time, but we, the gaming audience, get to browse new information on the future of the industry because of a court case and an evidence blunder. I'm sure the headlines will continue. It is, after all, one of, if not the largest leak in video game history, but yeah, that's it from my end. If you want to support the channel, please check out the links down below. Merchandise, social media, Patreon, locals, and channel memberships. Way better than AdSense. Please consider those. But I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.